August 9th, 1942. Ironbottom Sound, near Guadalcanal. Just after midnight. The sea is black. Not dark, black. So black that the horizon disappears completely, as if the world itself has ended at the edge of the water. A Japanese cruiser cuts through the darkness without lights, engines steady, disciplined. On the bridge, officers stand calm and confident. They have done this before. Night is their ally. The Japanese Navy prides itself on night fighting. For years, its crews have trained for this exact moment. They practice in darkness. They memorize silhouettes. They learn to judge distance by sound, by instinct, by experience. They believe no enemy can match them after sunset. And so far, they have been right. A silent advantage. The officers on the bridge speak quietly. They know the Americans are nearby. They know there are Allied ships protecting transports off Guadalcanal. But they are not worried. The Americans are new to night combat. They rely on daylight. They fumble in darkness. This has already been proven. Earlier battles in the Solomon Islands ended the same way. Sudden Japanese attacks, torpedoes slicing through black water, Allied ships exploding before they knew what hit them. Tonight will be no different. Or so the Japanese believe. Guadalcanal feels secure. Japanese commanders consider Guadalcanal dangerous during the day, but manageable at night. Daylight brings enemy aircraft. Night brings Japanese control. They call these nighttime supply runs the Tokyo Express. Fast destroyers rush troops and supplies down. The slot, unload quickly, and vanish before dawn. It has worked again and again. American forces on Guadalcanal struggle. Supplies run low. Reinforcements arrive slowly. From the Japanese perspective, the situation is under control. Confidence on the bridge. A young Japanese officer scans the darkness through binoculars. Nothing. No muzzle flashes. No searchlights. No warning. Perfect. The fleet moves deeper into Ironbottom Sound, a place already littered with the wrecks of ships sunk in earlier night battles. The name doesn't scare them. It reassures them. It reminds them who owns the night. What they cannot see, miles away, something new is watching. It does not rely on moonlight. It does not care about darkness. It does not blink. A green glow pulses softly inside an American warship. Radar, a different kind of vision. On the bridge of a US Navy cruiser, American sailors lean over a plotting table. They are tense, but not blind. A radar operator calls out bearings calmly. Range. Speed. Multiple contacts. The enemy is there. Clear as day. This is not how naval combat has worked for centuries. Traditionally, night hides ships. It protects movement. It favors experience. Radar changes everything. For the first time, Americans can see without being seen, and the Japanese do not know it yet. Two fleets, two realities. The Japanese fleet moves with confidence, believing the enemy is unaware. The American fleet holds position, quietly adjusting course. No flares. No radio chatter. No warning shots. Just patience. The Americans are no longer reacting. They are waiting. The first crack in the myth. An American officer studies the radar screen and swallows hard. The contacts are close. Too close. If radar is right, and it almost always is, the Japanese are sailing straight into a prepared force. This is new territory for everyone involved. Even the Americans don't fully trust what they are seeing yet. But they trust it enough to act. Orders in the dark. Quiet commands ripple across American decks. Guns are trained. Torpedoes are readied. Fire control solutions are calculated without a single visual confirmation. The enemy remains invisible to the naked eye, but not to the machine. The moment before everything changes. On the Japanese bridge, officers remain relaxed. They expect surprise. They expect chaos. They expect victory. They do not realize that surprise has already been taken from them. They do not realize that the night, their greatest weapon, has just changed sides. And when the first American guns open fire, it will feel impossible, unfair, unnatural. Because for the first time in this war, the darkness will betray them. In the next section, we step inside the technology that made this possible, and the quiet revolution the Japanese Navy never saw coming. Late August 1942, aboard US Navy cruisers off Guadalcanal. Night watch. Inside the ship, the air is thick with heat and tension. There are no windows here, no view of the ocean, no stars. Only a dim room filled with humming equipment and a faint green glow that pulses in the dark. Radar. A room the enemy never imagined. Young sailors crowd around a scope barely larger than a dinner plate. Lines sweep in slow, steady arcs. Blips appear, disappear, reappear closer. Each one represents a ship. An enemy ship. Outside, the sea is pitch black. On deck, even the most experienced lookout would see nothing but shadow. But in this room, the ocean is suddenly transparent. An untrusted miracle. Radar is new. So new that many American officers don't fully believe it yet. Early in the war, some commanders dismiss it as unreliable. Others worry it will distract crews from traditional skills. Old habits die hard at sea. But Guadalcanal forces change that. Here, mistakes are fatal, and anything that offers an edge is welcomed. The Japanese blind spot. The Imperial Japanese Navy prides itself on optics. Powerful binoculars. Well-trained lookouts. Years of night fighting drills. They believe human eyes, properly trained, are superior to machines. Radar seems unnecessary, even dishonorable. This belief will cost them dearly. Learning in real time. American crews are not experts yet. They learn on the job. Radar operators shout bearings. Officers translate them into maneuvers. Gunnery teams adjust angles without seeing targets. At first, the coordination is clumsy. Then something clicks. The information flows faster. Orders become sharper. Confidence grows. The machine is not replacing sailors. It is extending them. Seeing the unseen. For the first time, American ships know where the enemy is, how fast they are moving, which direction they are turning, all before the Japanese know they've been detected at all. It is not just an advantage. It is a collapse of assumptions. A new kind of ambush. Traditionally, night battles begin with confusion. Who fired first? Who hit whom? Who is even where? Radar removes that chaos. American commanders can now plan an engagement before it begins. They can choose when to fire, where to fire, and when to disengage. This is revolutionary. The quiet discipline. On deck, sailors whisper. They do not shout. They do not celebrate. They trust the men below to tell them when the time is right. This silence is intentional. The Japanese are listening. First proof. The first radar-guided engagements shock everyone involved. American guns open fire with startling accuracy. Shells find targets almost immediately. Japanese ships reel in confusion, unable to understand how they are being hit in total darkness. They assume flares. They assume luck. They assume coincidence. They do not suspect radar. A dangerous assumption. Japanese commanders believe Americans must still be guessing. They assume the enemy will lose contact. They maneuver as they always have, trusting darkness to break pursuit. But radar does not lose contact. It follows patiently. Confidence begins to shift. After each engagement, American crews talk quietly among themselves. They are still afraid. But now they are also curious. If radar worked this time, what about the next? What about a bigger battle? The night no longer feels hostile. It feels manageable. A lesson not shared. Japan has radar too. But it is limited, poorly integrated, rarely trusted. More importantly, Japanese doctrine does not change. Success in earlier battles reinforces old beliefs. Why fix what seems to work? That question will haunt them. The balance tilts. Night by night, the pattern shifts. Japanese attacks grow riskier. American responses grow sharper. What was once Japanese territory after sunset becomes contested. Then dangerous. Then lethal. The calm before the break. Neither side fully understands yet what is happening, but the ocean is keeping score, and it is beginning to favor the Americans. In the next section, the first major night battles will prove that radar is not a trick. It is the future. October 1942. Ironbottom Sound. After sunset, the sea looks the same as it always has. Black, silent, deceptive. Japanese ships slip south through the slot with practiced ease. Engines are throttled carefully. Lookouts strain their eyes into the darkness. Every man on deck believes the same thing. We have done this before. We know this water. We know the night. Veterans of the dark. Many of the Japanese officers aboard these ships are veterans. They fought at night off Java. They fought at night in the early Solomons. They won. They trust their instincts more than any instrument. They trust their training more than any machine. In their minds, night combat is an art, and they are masters. The Americans should be blind. From the Japanese perspective, the Americans are still amateurs, poorly trained in night maneuvers, dependent on radio chatter, slow to react. That belief shapes every decision they make. They assume surprise is guaranteed. It is not. The first shots feel wrong. Without warning, American guns erupt. Not wildly, not hesitantly, precisely. Shells splash close, then closer, then strike. Japanese officers freeze for a moment, stunned. There were no flares, no warning lights, no visible silhouettes. How did they aim? Confusion on the bridge. Orders are shouted. Turn hard to port. Increase speed. Launch torpedoes. The maneuvers are correct. The crew executes them perfectly. But something is wrong. The American fire does not stop. It adjusts. Each turn is matched. Each speed change is answered. It feels as if the enemy can see them. The old rules collapse. Japanese doctrine teaches that once contact is broken, the enemy will lose you. Darkness is protection. But radar does not lose targets when they turn away. It tracks. Patiently. Relentlessly. Veterans doubt. A senior Japanese officer grips the rail, staring into the blackness. He has fought at sea for years. Never has he felt this exposed at night. Never has darkness felt so thin. American calm. On American bridges, the mood is different. Still tense. Still afraid. But controlled. Radar operators feed continuous updates. Fire control teams adjust solutions in real time. Gunnery officers know exactly when to fire and when to wait. There is no guessing. Learning under fire, the Americans are not perfect. They make mistakes. They hesitate. They miscommunicate. But radar forgives small errors. It keeps feeding information. It keeps correcting them. The psychological shift. For Japanese crews, the night begins to feel hostile. What once gave confidence now creates fear. Every shadow could hide an unseen enemy who already knows where you are. The balance of stress reverses. Retreat without understanding. Eventually, Japanese ships break off. They withdraw as they always have. But this time, they are not certain why they survived at all. They return to base with damage, with losses, and with questions no one can answer. The wrong conclusion. Japanese commanders analyze the battle. They blame luck. They blame poor visibility. They blame coincidence. They do not blame radar. To do so would require admitting that years of doctrine are obsolete. That is unthinkable. The Americans take notes. The Americans do the opposite. They document everything. What worked? What failed? What radar showed before and after firing? Each engagement becomes a lesson. Each lesson improves the next fight. Night is no longer a guarantee. By late 1942, Japanese commanders begin to sense the shift. Night attacks feel riskier. Losses increase. Surprise fades faster. But Guadalcanal still seems salvageable. They believe they can adapt. They are wrong. The trap tightens. Radar-guided fire is not a fluke. It is becoming routine. And in the next section, the Americans will stop reacting to Japanese moves altogether. They will begin to set traps in the dark. November 1942. Ironbottom Sound. After midnight. The night is calm. Too calm. The water barely moves as American ships take up position, engines idling low, silhouettes swallowed by darkness. There is no rush, no frantic maneuvering. This time, the Americans are not responding to an enemy move. They are waiting. From reaction to preparation. Earlier in the campaign, American commanders fought nervously at night. They reacted. They improvised. They hoped radar would be right. Now they plan entire battles around it. Courses are plotted hours in advance. Firing solutions are prepared before the enemy arrives. Radar contacts are anticipated, not discovered. This is no longer experimentation. It is doctrine. The Japanese routine. Japanese destroyers race down the slot, as they have dozens of times before. The Tokyo Express is on schedule. They expect resistance. They expect chaos. They expect to slip away before dawn. What they do not expect is silence. No gunfire. No flares. No warning. Just darkness. The unseen net. American radar operators detect the Japanese force long before visual contact. Range is steady. Speed is consistent. Course is predictable. On plotting tables, white grease pencil lines trace enemy movement in real time. The Japanese are sailing straight into a prepared killing zone. But they have no idea. Holding fire. This is the hardest part. American gunners want to shoot. Nerves strain. Hands tighten on controls. But officers hold them back. Wait. Wait. Closer. Radar says the range is closing. This patience would have been impossible months earlier. Now it is discipline. The moment of revelation. When the order finally comes, it feels unreal. Guns fire almost simultaneously across multiple ships. Shells streak into blackness guided by numbers, not eyes. Hits register almost immediately. Japanese bridges erupt in confusion. How can this be happening again? Chaos without a cause. Japanese crews scramble to respond. They launch torpedoes into darkness, aiming at where the enemy should be. But the enemy is not where it should be. American ships have already turned. Radar warned them seconds earlier. A one-sided night. American fire remains controlled. Short bursts. Measured salvos. Constant adjustment. Japanese ships burn fuel and energy maneuvering blindly. They cannot fix the enemy's position. They cannot break contact. Every turn makes them more predictable. Commanders lose the thread. Japanese officers shout orders, but the battle has no rhythm they recognize. No visual cues. No sense of momentum. No moment to regain control. Night combat, once an art, has become chaos. A dangerous realization. For the first time, Japanese commanders suspect something fundamental has changed. This is not luck. This is not coincidence. The Americans are fighting differently. Too late to change. Even if they suspect radar now, adaptation is not immediate. New doctrine takes time. New equipment takes time. New training takes time. Guadalcanal allows none of it. The trap closes repeatedly. Night after night, similar patterns unfold. Japanese forces enter expecting surprise. American forces wait in silence. The outcome becomes predictable. Ironbottom Sound earns its name. The waters between the islands grow crowded with wrecks. Ships from both sides rest below the surface. But the ratio has changed. The night no longer favors Japan. It punishes it. The balance is broken. By late November, the truth is unavoidable. Japan cannot move freely after dark anymore. The advantage that once defined its naval doctrine is gone. And in the next section, this loss will ripple outward, from night battles to supply lines, and finally, to the fate of Guadalcanal itself, December 1942. The Solomon Islands. Night falls again. The darkness returns, but something is missing. Speed, confidence, certainty. The Tokyo Express slows. For months, Japan relied on night to keep Guadalcanal alive. Fast destroyers raced down the slot, unloading troops, ammunition, and food under cover of darkness. By dawn, they were gone. It was risky, but it worked. Now it doesn't. American radar-guided ships make every run dangerous. Destroyers are forced to maneuver defensively. Unloading takes longer. Some ships turn back before reaching shore. Each delay costs lives. Fighting hunger, not the enemy. On Guadalcanal, Japanese soldiers begin to feel the change first. Rations shrink. Ammunition is rationed. Medical supplies vanish. Men who expected decisive night victories now fight disease, starvation, and exhaustion. You can almost feel the humidity clinging to their uniforms, the weakness creeping into their bodies. No radar can fix hunger. The Americans tighten the net. US naval commanders recognize what is happening. If Japan cannot resupply Guadalcanal safely, the island will fall on its own. They do not need spectacular victories. They only need consistency. Radar watches the sea every night. Aircraft strike by day. The pressure never stops. A different kind of victory. American ships no longer chase every contact. They choose targets carefully. Sometimes they force Japanese destroyers to flee without firing a shot. Sometimes they let them unload, then strike on the return run. The goal is not glory. It is attrition. Japanese commanders face reality. Reports from Guadalcanal grow grim. Units are under strength. Morale collapses. Combat effectiveness drops. Officers argue in headquarters. Some demand more night runs. Others warn that losses are unsustainable. Radar has made night predictable. And predictability is deadly. War of systems. Japan fights bravely. But bravery does not replace fuel, food, or ammunition. The Americans fight differently. They fight with logistics, coordination, and machines that do not tire. This is not a contest of courage. It is a contest of systems. Japan is losing. The island that cannot be saved. By January 1943, the truth is unavoidable. Guadalcanal cannot be held. Every attempt to reinforce it costs more ships than it saves soldiers. Every night run risks annihilation. Radar has sealed the island's fate. Withdrawal in the dark. Japan begins planning evacuation. Quietly. Carefully. At night. Ironically, the same darkness that once delivered victory is now the only way out. Even then, American radar watches. The evacuation succeeds only because the Americans choose not to contest it fully. They already have what they want. Guadalcanal. A strategic shockwave. The loss of Guadalcanal is more than a local defeat. It shatters the myth of Japanese naval superiority at night. Across the Pacific, commanders take note. Radar changes everything. The question spreads. If the Americans can do this here, where else can they do it? And how quickly? The long shadow of the night. Japanese officers understand now that the night no longer belongs to them. But understanding comes too late. In the final section, we will see how this quiet technological shift reshaped the entire Pacific War, and why Guadalcanal was the moment the balance truly changed. Early 1943. After Guadalcanal, across the Pacific Ocean. The fighting around Guadalcanal ends quietly. No grand ceremony. No dramatic announcement. Just absence. Japanese ships stop coming. The Tokyo Express vanishes into memory, and with it disappears something far more important than an island. The loss no one can replace. Guadalcanal is not just territory. It is proof. proof that Japan's greatest naval advantage no longer works. For years, Japanese doctrine assumed that skill, training, and courage could overcome material disadvantages. Night combat was where that belief felt strongest. Radar destroys that belief. A new reality at sea. After Guadalcanal, every Japanese naval plan includes the same fear. What if the Americans can see us? What if they already know where we are? That hesitation changes everything. Night operations slow. Aggression fades. Initiative disappears. The Americans sense it immediately. The Americans grow bold. US commanders no longer fear night engagements. They welcome them. Radar-guided fire becomes routine. Coordination between ships improves. Crews trust the machines and each other. The ocean feels smaller to Japan and larger to America. Doctrine rewritten in silence. There is no single document that marks this shift. No public declaration. But across the Pacific, US Navy tactics evolve rapidly. Night is no longer a weakness to endure. It is a weapon to exploit. Japan's impossible catch-up. Japan attempts to adapt. Radar sets are installed. Training changes are discussed. But resources are limited. Production is slow. Fuel is scarce. Even when radar appears, it lacks integration. Crews are unfamiliar. Commanders hesitate to trust it. The gap widens. The domino effect. With night superiority gone, Japan loses more than battles. It loses freedom of movement. Supply lines weaken. Bases become isolated. Defensive perimeters shrink. Each loss feeds the next. Guadalcanal is not the end. It is the beginning of retreat. A war decided by information. The Pacific War is often remembered for carriers, island landings, and air power. But beneath it all lies something quieter. Information. Who knows first? Who reacts faster? Who adapts quickest? Radar gives the Americans all three. The final irony. Japanese sailors trained for years to master darkness. They memorized stars. They studied silhouettes. They trusted instinct. None of it mattered once the enemy learned to see without eyes. The night did not betray them. Technology did. Why Guadalcanal still matters. Modern navies still study these battles. Not for the ships. Not for the tactics alone. But for the lesson. Superiority is temporary. Assumptions are dangerous. Adaptation decides wars. The last image. Imagine Ironbottom Sound after the fighting ends. The water is calm again. The night is quiet. Wrecks rest below the surface, unseen, reminders of a moment when history shifted without fanfare. The Japanese believed Guadalcanal was secure. They believed the night belonged to them. They were wrong. Because once America learned to see in the dark, the Pacific would never be the same again.